All right. UPSC peeps, getting ready for those exams.
Yeah.
We got to keep up with current affairs. Right.
Well, today we're going deep on something you're bound to see pop up. It's India's whole tech revolution thing.
It's everywhere.
Huh. Yeah. And whether you're prepping for mains or even prelims, this stuff matters. So
Absolutely.
we're going to break it down. We've got this Business Standard article. It's called India's Tech Revolution, Drivers, Issues, and Future Measures. Gotta love a catchy title, right?
Gotta have it.
So we're dissecting that today. But listen, don't think this is just about memorizing a bunch of facts and figures.
Right. Gotta go deeper.
Yeah. It's about really getting why India's tech scene is exploding, what's holding it back, and how we're strategizing to overcome all those obstacles.
Exactly. This is about crafting those killer answers that'll make the
Right.
examiners go, wow.
That's what we want.
Yeah.
All right. To kick things off, let's hit you with a stat. You ready for this? India has over 120,000 startups.
Whoa.
Yeah, that makes us the third largest startup ecosystem globally. That's huge.
It's massive.
But it's not just about how many. It's about what they're doing. We're seeing a shift from the old school IT services to what they're calling deep tech.
Deep tech. Yeah.
Yeah, so think AI, semiconductor design, space tech, even quantum computing. It's like sci-fi stuff becoming reality.
It's the future.
Right here, right now. And these are the things that are really going to propel India forward.
And what's super interesting is how India is using its, digital public infrastructure, or DPI,
DPI. Yeah.
to really push all this growth. Think about platforms like UPI, Aadhaar, ONDC. They're changing everything. Payments, ID verification, e-commerce, the whole shebang.
Oh, yeah. Remember when UPI hit that crazy record, like 16.99 billion transactions back in January 2025?
Yeah.
Moving something like 23.48 lakh crore digitally. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah, no wonder India is showing off its DPI, on the global stage, especially at the G20.
Making a statement.
Yeah.
But let's get back to this deep tech thing. Indian startups aren't just copying what's already out there. They're making brand new stuff in defense, AI healthcare solutions, even blockchain. They're not messing around.
And the world is taking notice, right? Deep tech startups, they got like $10 billion in funding just last year.
Whoa, that's serious money. It shows they're betting big on India.
Absolutely.
And speaking of big, AI is another area where India is really making waves.
For sure.
It's changing everything: manufacturing, banking, healthcare, even how the government works. Everything's becoming more efficient. Decisions are smarter. It's a total game changer.
Yeah, and it's not just private companies doing their thing. The government's pushing AI too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they've got these initiatives, the India AI mission and Bharatgan. It's all about making AI accessible to everyone, using it to make public services better. It's a pretty big deal.
So I've got this double whammy: private companies innovating like crazy, the government backing them up, and then using AI to help the people. That's a pretty solid strategy.
Yeah, it's a smart move.
But let's not forget the foundation of all this, the telecom infrastructure.
Oh, right?
With 5G rolling out everywhere, it's like a super highway for the Internet of Things, smart cities, and, most importantly, high-speed internet in those rural areas that need it most.
Right.
And companies like Reliance Jio, Airtel, they're laying down those fiber optic cables, closing that digital divide. It's all connected.
It's impressive. It really is.
They're even saying India could have like 330 million 5G subscribers by 2026.
Wow.
That's a huge market.
That's massive.
And get this, we're already thinking about 6G.
6G already?
The government's got this Bharat 6G vision document. They're aiming to be #1 in 6G by 2030.
That's ambitious.
Super ambitious, but that's India for you.
Yeah.
We're not just trying to keep up, we're trying to lead the way. And that brings us to this whole self-reliance push.
Oh, yeah.
We've got Make in India, the production-linked incentive schemes, or PLI. It's all about encouraging companies to manufacture high-tech stuff right here, reducing our reliance on imports, especially from, yeah, exactly. It's a strategic move.
It makes sense.
And it's working. Even big companies like Apple are thinking about moving like 18% of their iPhone production to India by 2025.
Really?
Yeah, it's a big win for Make in India. It shows that India is a serious player in the manufacturing game.
For sure.
It's clear that India doesn't just want to use technology. We want to create it, innovate, be a leader in the whole thing.
Absolutely.
But here's something I find really interesting. Amidst all this tech craziness, India is also weaving in sustainability.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's this focus on green data centers, using renewable energy to power AI, even developing eco-friendly tech solutions. It's pretty cool.
It's like they're saying we can be tech savvy and environmentally conscious at the same time.
Exactly. It's not just about progress. It's about responsible progress.
Right.
It's about making sure India's tech growth aligns with our net zero goals and all that.
Makes sense.
So far, we've painted a pretty optimistic picture, haven't we?
It does look good.
But we got to be real. Every revolution faces its share of challenges, right? And understanding those is just as important.
Yeah, no revolution is a walk in the park.
It's about knowing the good, the bad, and the ugly, right?
Exactly. And for you UPSC folks, this is where the analysis gets interesting, figuring out these challenges and their impact. That's how you write those awesome answers that score you those points.
So let's dive into those challenges, shall we? What's the first hurdle we got to clear?
Okay, so we've talked about all the exciting stuff happening in India's tech world, but let's get real. There are some serious roadblocks we got to deal with. And for you UPSC folks, this is where you can really shine in your answers, right?
Yeah.
Identifying the problems and coming up with solutions, that's what gets you those high marks.
You're right. It's not enough to just know the good stuff. Got to understand those hurdles and how we're going to jump over them. So where do we even begin? It seems like a lot to tackle.
Well, let's start with something that people don't always talk about, regulatory uncertainty. You know, when policies keep changing, approvals take forever, and there's a ton of red tape.
The bureaucracy.
Yeah, exactly. And all that can be a major headache for businesses, especially those trying to innovate. It can scare away investors and slow everything down.
Yeah, I get it. It's hard to plan for the future when you don't know what the rules are going to be tomorrow.
Yeah.
Do you have any examples of how this has actually affected the tech sector?
Oh, tons. Take the FAME scheme for electric vehicles. Remember that? They replaced it with the PM eDrive scheme in 2024, and it just created so much confusion for the whole EV industry. Nobody knew what was going on.
Right. It's like changing the game in the middle of the match.
And then there's the Digital Personal Data Protection Act. It's a step in the right direction, but it's still kind of vague on some important stuff like, you know, what about data that goes across borders? So companies are hesitant. They don't want to get in trouble.
So it's like they're trying to protect people's data, but they also don't want to tie businesses up in knots. It's a tough balance.
It is. And then there's that World Bank report, the Doing Business one, remember? India's ranked 63rd, which means...
We're not exactly at the top.
No, we're not. There's definitely room for improvement when it comes to making it easier to do business here.
Right. Got to cut down on that red tape.
And hey, remember when SEBI cracked down on all those financial influencers who weren't registered?
Oh, yeah, that was big news.
They were trying to protect investors, which is good, but it also kind of backfired. You know, a lot of startups lost those brand deals and it hurt their marketing and growth.
It's like a ripple effect. You make one change and impacts everything.
Yeah, it's all connected, but moving on, let's talk about another big challenge, the digital divide. You know, even though we've made progress, internet access is still a problem, especially in those rural areas.
Yeah, the digital divide is a tough one. It's not just about being able to watch funny videos online. It's about opportunity, right? If you don't have good internet, you can't really participate in the digital economy. You can't access online education. You miss out on so much.
Exactly. And the numbers are pretty crazy. 45% of India's population, that's like 665 million people, still don't have internet access. Think about that.
It's a huge chunk of the population being left behind.
Yeah, and it means they can't fully benefit from all this tech revolution stuff, which just makes existing inequalities even worse.
And remember that PM Wani Wi-Fi scheme. They were trying to fix this problem, but it hasn't really worked out as well as they hoped.
Right. It's been tough to implement, lots of challenges, but the point is, closing this digital divide is crucial. We got to make sure everyone benefits from this tech revolution, not just a lucky few. And it's not just about infrastructure. It's about affordability, making sure people can actually pay for internet, teaching them how to use it, and making sure the content online is relevant to their lives.
So much more to it than just laying down cables.
Absolutely. Now, let's switch gears a bit and talk about another issue that's holding India back. The talent gap. We've got a good education system, but we're still short on skilled professionals in some key areas like AI, cybersecurity, all that advanced stuff.
So it's like we've got the brains, but they're not always trained for the right jobs.
Exactly, and that's a problem because if we don't have enough skilled people, it doesn't matter how much we invest in technology. It's like having a fancy car but not knowing how to drive it.
Right. It just sits there all shiny and useless.
And the numbers show it. India only spends like 0.65% of its GDP on research and development. That's not a lot. And our global share in AI research is tiny, like 1.4%. That's got to change.
So we need to invest more in R&D, but also make sure our education system is producing graduates who are ready for these jobs, right? Like the curriculum needs to keep up with all these new technologies. Otherwise, they'll graduate and be like, wait, what is this?
Exactly. Got to bridge that gap between what they learn in school and what they actually need to know in the real world. Okay, now let's shift focus to another big concern, cybersecurity.
Oh, yeah, that's a scary one.
Right. As India gets more digital, the risks just keep growing. Cyber attacks, data breaches, online scams, it's all out there. And we've already seen some pretty bad stuff happen. Remember the ransomware attack?
Yeah, that was awful. All that sensitive patient data exposed.
Yeah. And then there are all those digital arrest scams going around. People are losing crores of rupees. It's a nightmare.
It's like the Wild West out there. So how do we protect ourselves?
Well, for starters, we got to give the National Cyber Coordination Center, or NCCC, more power. They
Right.
need to be able to monitor all this stuff and coordinate responses across all those important sectors like banking, government, defense, everything.
So it's like they're the cyber police, keeping an eye on everything.
Yeah, pretty much. But we also need to invest in better cybersecurity infrastructure, the tech stuff, but also educate people, make them more aware of the risks, teach them how to be safe online. That's huge.
Right, because even the best tech can't protect you if you click on every suspicious link you see.
Exactly. And let's not forget about all those Indian cybersecurity startups popping up. They're creating some really cool solutions to fight these threats, so supporting them is important too.
So it's like a multi-pronged approach, better tech, smarter people, and homegrown innovation.
Exactly. That's the recipe for a strong cybersecurity ecosystem. All right. We've covered regulatory uncertainty, the digital divide, the talent gap, cybersecurity, anything else we're missing.
Feels like we've gone through a lot.
We have, but there's one more big one. We can't ignore our reliance on foreign technology, all this digital growth we're seeing. A lot of it depends on stuff we import, like semiconductors, cloud infrastructure, AI models, all that.
So we're building this amazing digital India, but we're still using foreign building blocks. Kind of ironic, isn't it?
It is, and it makes us vulnerable. What if those supply chains get disrupted? What if something happens globally and we can't get those components anymore? It's a risk.
Yeah, like building a house on shaky ground.
Exactly. But the good news is the government is trying to fix this. They've got the semiconductor mission, which aims to make India a global hub for chip making. And the PLI scheme for electronics manufacturing is attracting big companies like Foxconn and Samsung to set up shop here.
So we're trying to make our own stuff instead of relying on others. That's smart.
It is, and it's not just about hardware. We also need to develop our own cloud platforms and AI models, reduce our dependence on those big foreign tech giants like Google and Amazon.
So we're talking about data sovereignty, right? Like being in control of our own data.
Exactly. It's super important, especially in this digital age. Having our own cloud infrastructure and AI capabilities means we're less vulnerable to foreign influence. We have more control over our data. It's a big deal.
So it's like we're building our own digital brain. An Indian brain.
I like that analogy, an Indian brain that understands our own needs and priorities. And that brings us to another important point, the ethical and social implications of all this AI stuff. We're using it in so many areas now, governance, recruitment, even law enforcement, and that raises some concerns, right? Like, what about bias? What about people losing their jobs to robots? What about all that data being collected? Is it really safe?
Yeah, it's a lot of power in the hands of algorithms. Got to be careful with that.
You're right. AI is a powerful tool, but it's got to be used responsibly and ethically. We need clear guidelines for how it's developed and used. We got to address those bias issues and make sure it benefits everyone, not just a select few.
It's like with great power comes great responsibility, right? We got to make sure we're using AI for good.
Exactly. And speaking of power, we also got to watch out for those digital monopolies, a few big companies controlling everything. That can stifle innovation and create an uneven playing field for smaller players.
It's like the big fish swallowing up all the little fish.
Yeah, and that's not good for anyone in the long run. We need a healthy and vibrant tech ecosystem where everyone has a chance to succeed. So we need policies that promote fair competition, prevent those big companies from hoarding all the data, and help those smaller startups grow.
So it's not just about building cool tech. It's about building a fair and sustainable tech ecosystem.
Exactly. It's about making sure everyone benefits from this digital revolution. Now, we've covered a lot of challenges here. Regulatory uncertainty, the digital divide, talent gap, cybersecurity, reliance on foreign tech, ethical AI, digital monopolies. It's a complex landscape. But understanding all of this is the first step.
To finding solutions, right?
You got it. And in the next part of our deep dive, We'll explore all those solutions that India is putting in place to overcome these hurdles and create a brighter, more equitable, and resilient digital future. So stay tuned, UPSC folks. This is where we connect all the dots and start crafting those high-scoring answers for your exams.
All right, so we've talked about the challenges, and I got to be honest, it got a little bit heavy there for a minute, but, as UPSC aspirants, we can't be afraid of the tough stuff. In fact, understanding these complex issues, that's what really sets us apart.
Absolutely. It's about seeing the whole picture.
Right, so now I'm curious, what are the solutions? How is India actually tackling these roadblocks and paving the way for a better tech future?
Well, acknowledging the problems is the first step, and the good news is India is taking action. Remember our discussion about digital public infrastructure, or DPI?
DPI, yeah.
Well, that's a big part of the solution, and we're not just talking about UPI and Aadhaar anymore. We're looking at expanding this model to other crucial areas like healthcare, education, even agriculture.
Okay, I'm starting to see the potential here. Imagine a farmer in a remote village. They can access real-time market information, connect with buyers, even get expert advice on their crops, all through their phone.
That's the power of DPI. It's about breaking down barriers and making essential services available to everyone, no matter where they are.
It's like we're creating a level playing field, digitally speaking.
Exactly. And think about the possibilities with AI-driven governance. We could streamline welfare programs, reduce corruption, even personalize education plans for students based on their learning style. It's incredible.
It's like we're weaving a digital safety net that catches everyone. But let's move on to another solution that's been making headlines. Boosting indigenous semiconductor and electronics manufacturing. We talked about how reliant we are on imports, so what are we doing to change that?
Well, the government is taking this seriously. They've rolled out this huge euro 76,000 crore semiconductor PLI scheme. It's a game changer. It's encouraging companies to set up semiconductor fabrication plants right here in India, which means we can start making our own chips.
Wow, that's a big deal. I remember reading about that Micron deal. That's a huge win for India. But isn't chip manufacturing incredibly complex and expensive?
It is, but India has the talent and the resources to make it happen. Plus, we're not doing it alone. Collaborating with global leaders in the industry gives us access to the latest tech and expertise, but we're also prioritizing developing our own intellectual property. It's a smart strategy.
So we're not just copying, we're innovating.
Exactly. We're learning from the best, but building our own path.
Okay, so we're expanding GPI, we're making our own chips. What about AI and cloud infrastructure? We talked about the risks of relying on those big foreign companies. How do we fix that?
The answer is simple. We build our own, developing India-centric AI models tailored to our languages, our culture, our specific needs. That's essential for true tech independence.
So we're talking about creating an AI that understands India.
Exactly. We need to invest in building our own AI supercomputing clusters, support our homegrown AI startups, and create a thriving ecosystem right here.
It's like we're building our own digital brain, an Indian brain that's uniquely suited to solve our own problems.
I like that, an Indian brain. And that brings us to the question of data. AI needs data to learn, so where does all that data come from?
Good point. We can't just rely on foreign data sets.
Right, that's where data localization policies come in. By requiring certain types of data to be stored and processed within India, we can enhance data security, promote innovation within our own ecosystem, and even create jobs in the data management sector.
So it's about having control over our own data, using it to fuel our own AI development.
Exactly. It's about data sovereignty. And let's not forget about cybersecurity. That's a constant battle.
Absolutely. We can't let our guard down.
We need to empower the NCCC to act as a central command center, monitoring cyber threats and coordinating responses across all sectors. We also need to invest in better cybersecurity infrastructure, educate people about online safety, and support our homegrown cybersecurity companies.
It's like we're building a digital fortress. But we can't just be defensive. What about India's space program? We've already accomplished so much with satellite technology. What's next?
The sky's the limit. Expanding our low-cost satellite manufacturing capabilities and encouraging private companies to get involved through in-space, those are key priorities. Imagine using satellites to connect remote areas, bridge the digital divide, provide high-speed internet to everyone.
It's like taking digital India to space, connecting every corner of the country, from the Himalayas to the coasts.
Exactly. And while we're on the topic of pushing boundaries, what about deep tech research and development? That's where the real breakthroughs happen.
Deep tech, the cutting edge of innovation.
We need to foster a culture of innovation in areas like quantum computing, biotechnology, advanced materials. We need to create dedicated research hubs, incentivize private sector R&D, and encourage collaboration between our top institutions and global tech giants.
It's like creating a breeding ground for scientific breakthroughs, a place where the best minds can come together and push the limits of what's possible.
Exactly. But ideas are just the starting point. We need to translate those ideas into real-world solutions. And that's where things like PhD to startup programs, incubators, and accelerators come in. They can help nurture these deep tech startups and turn their innovations into products and services that benefit society.
So we're creating a pipeline from research to real-world impact.
Exactly, but we can't forget about the people. We talked about the talent gap, so how are we making sure India has a workforce that's ready for this tech-driven future?
Yeah, we need people who can build and use all this amazing technology.
Right, and that starts with education. Strengthening STEM education in schools and universities is crucial. We need to introduce coding and computational thinking early on, offer specialized courses in AI, cybersecurity, all those in-demand fields, and make sure our graduates have the skills that companies are looking for.
And it's not just about young people. We also need to upskill and reskill those who are already in the workforce, those who might be left behind as technology changes.
Absolutely. Providing access to affordable and high-quality training programs can empower millions to participate in the digital economy and adapt to the new demands of the job market.
It's like we're creating a culture of lifelong learning where everyone is constantly evolving and upgrading their skills.
Exactly. It's about staying ahead of the curve, and let's not forget about digital literacy. Everyone, no matter their age or background, should have the basic skills to navigate the online world safely and effectively.
So it's a holistic approach, from education to infrastructure to fostering innovation.
It's about creating a digital India that works for everyone.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground, from expanding UPI and making our own chips to nurturing deep tech innovation and building a skilled workforce. It's clear that India is taking a comprehensive and strategic approach to its tech revolution.
It's an exciting time to be a part of this journey. We're not just using technology, we're shaping it to meet our own unique needs and aspirations. And as UPSC aspirants, it's important to not just understand these solutions, but to critically analyze them, think about their potential impact, their challenges, their limitations. That's what will set you apart in the exam.
That's a great point. So for all our listeners out there, here's something to think about. With all these amazing initiatives in place, how can we ensure that India's tech revolution is not just technologically advanced, but also equitable, ethical, and truly beneficial for all citizens? It's a question worth pondering.
It is. It's the question that should guide all our efforts. How do we make this revolution a success for everyone?
Absolutely. So if you've got any thoughts on this, share them in the comments. Let's start a conversation. And if you found this deep dive helpful, don't forget to like this episode and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth discussions on all those important UPSC topics.
And if you want to learn even more about this topic, be sure to check out that Business Standard article, India's Tech Revolution, Drivers, Issues, and Future Measures. It's packed with insights and will definitely give you an edge in your preparation.
All right, until next time, happy studying and stay curious.